Hey, welcome to the Because I Can live podcast. All right, before we dig into today's guest expert, I want to give you a little backstory on why I thought this guest expert would be a perfect addition to the Because I Can live podcast. So, back it up a few months ago, and I was at his house. Jared and I were at his house eating dinner, and he was telling me about this book that he was writing that was about to be published. And I'm like, tell me more, tell me more. And he said that he went and found 17 entrepreneurs that found something or did something common that led them to be uncommon. So the very basic things out there led them to ultra success. And as I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, that's my story too. I took something very common, trash, and turned it into a multi-million-dollar business and then sold it after 7.5 years. And it just got me thinking, more people need to hear this story, because how many times have you thought, I'm just common? I mean, I know I have that feeling still today, like I'm just common, but that's what it takes. You already have what it takes to be successful. And so I wanted to bring in this guest expert. I haven't said his name yet. I'll tell you in just a second, because I really think it'll help you realize that you're ready to go. You have what it takes to be successful. And then you'll hear in the podcast episode that I wasn't going to release this episode until April. And he convinced me to get it up a little bit early because with his book launch, he's got so many great additions to it. And I didn't want you missing out. So we bumped this podcast episode up just a little bit. And then don't forget to stick around for the ending where I give you the top 10 takeaways. All right. Our guest today is John Lee Dumas. And he's going to tell you all the goods about his podcast. But here's a hint. He has over 3,000 podcast episodes. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of podcast episodes. So he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. So let's dive in and let's get started. John Lee Dumas is in the house. Woohoo!
And I'm right down the road too.
I know, we're neighbors and our dogs are best friends.
Gus and Goose. Does it get any cuter?
It doesn't. All right. Tell my audience about you. I have a feeling a lot of them don't know about you. So this is going to be a brand new introduction. And I'm so excited that they get the JLD experience. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Real quick and concise background story. Born in the state of Maine, very small town, 2,000 people. Loved it for the first 18 years of my life. Then I pieced out to Providence College on an Army scholarship. So I spent 4 years as a cadet at PC. Then I did 8 years in the Army, 4 active, 4 in the reserves, with a 13-month tour of duty in Iraq as a tank platoon leader. So I was in charge of 4 tanks and 16 men in Iraq for those 13 months. Pretty intense for a 23, 24-year-old, but I guess somebody had to do it, I guess. And then after that, I went into what I honestly call my 6 years of struggle. So from 26 years old to 32, I just struggled. I struggled with life, which most people do in their 20s and 30s. I mean, that's what your 20s and 30s are for. You're trying to find yourself. But for me, it was just like one failure after another. Like I went to law school, dropped out, went to corporate finance. I quit after a year, tried residential real estate, commercial real estate. Like nothing was working for me. Nothing made sense, like as far as feeling right and like something that I was meant to do. And finally, at 32 years old, after going through 6 years of this struggle, I said, hey, it's time to actually start educating myself. It's time to surround myself with some better people. Because, I love that Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And frankly, my 5 kind of sucked. Like they weren't evil people. They weren't bad people, but they were Debbie Downers. They were Don Doolittles. And I was just like, well, these people aren't a good average and I'm the average of them. So I need to figure this out. So my best option at that point was reading the right books, surrounding myself with these amazing authors, listening to their audiobooks. Then that led me to podcasts and listening to these amazing interviews with successful entrepreneurs and just learning from them and feeling like I was a fly on the wall and actually being a part of these conversations. And I said, man, how can I even take this to the next level? And that obviously led me to the idea of launching my own podcast, but I didn't want to be a pale, weak imitation of all the other podcasts that were out there. And we'll talk more on this later, by the way. And I said, hey, I need to do something different. I need to find something that's missing in the podcast world that's not currently being done. I need to feel or find a void that I can actually fill. And when I thought about it, Alison, I was just like, hey, what actually needs to exist in this podcasting world? Like, what do I wish existed that doesn't? And frankly, my biggest complaint about podcasts back in the day were every single interview-based podcast of these amazing, inspiring entrepreneurs was coming out one day per week or twice per month. And I was like, that is just not enough quantity. I'm driving to work every day. I'm at the gym. I want more podcasts. I need a daily episode waiting for me 7 days a week. And I can't believe it doesn't exist. So why not, to quote Gandhi here for a second, be the change that I wanted to see in the world? And that's when I set off, Alison, to create my first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you, I did all the right things at the beginning. And I mean it. Like, I hired a mentor, Jamie Masters. She was a successful business podcast host. She was who I wanted to be, a successful business podcast host. I joined a mastermind of podcasts, Cliff Ravenscraft's podcast mastermind, to surround myself with even more of the right people. And then I launched Entrepreneurs on Fire back in September 2012. And what I like to say, to kind of wrap this up, Alison, is like, the day I launched, it was the best daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. It was the worst daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. It was the only daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And here you and I sit now, 3,000 episodes later, over 100 million listens, averaging 1.4 million listens every single month. And you and I are we're business people. We're business people. Like, we also know you got to have revenue to back up just listens. And this podcast has generated over $20 million, in the past 9 years. We
Good for you.
Generate over $100,000 of net profit for 91 months in a row. And we publish all the details at our income reports at our website. And we just love that transparency we can bring to the world. And here we are.
And your fiance now, Kate, she writes those reports, right?
She does the reports every month. She makes them masterful. I mean, we go into detail about every dollar that we made, every dollar that we spend. We bring our lawyer on for a legal tip. We bring our accountant on for a tax tip. She coordinates all of that, of course, as well. And boom, we just have these very valuable reports. Again, 91 months in a row now.
That's amazing. And thank you for all the entrepreneurs for doing that, for being so open about it and talking about numbers. And I like this service and we canceled this service. I love what you guys do. I love what Kate puts together. It makes it so easy for entrepreneurs. So woohoo, shout out to you guys for making that happen.
I put a ring on that finger.
You got it on there. Okay, so tell me again, how many podcasts? Did you say 3,000 podcasts?
Yes, over 3,000 podcasts.
Okay, so you've interviewed quite a range of people, right?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to talk about what interviews have really stood out to you and why. And then we'll get to this really cool thing called John Lee Dumas's first book. Second, how do you find these people? And then which ones have you found that are really good to interview? And then I want to hear some examples.
Okay. So the number one way that I found these people back in the day was I was really struggling and saying, how am I going to find 30 entrepreneurs a month to say yes to be interviewed by me back when nobody heard of my name, nobody heard of my podcast, and nobody really had heard of podcast, period. I did something really cool, and this still works to this day, is I literally I said to myself, what is my niche? Well, entrepreneurship. Where can I go to find people that are experts and like to speak on their area of expertise? Well, what about conferences? Well, I'm not going to go to every single conference in the world on entrepreneurship. I can't. But what if I just go to Google and type in best entrepreneur podcast conferences? And then I see the list of like the top 9 entrepreneur conferences of 2012 or 2021 or fill in the blank of the year. I click on those conference page and then I go to the actual speaker tab on that website and it lists out all the speakers and what they're talking about and what their website is and how to contact them and like all these different things. And I'm just like, this is it. So I would like find a conference like Social Media Marketing World that has 250 speakers. And like, that's a gold mine. That's almost a year's worth of potential guests for me. And these are people that are willing to fly halfway across the country to speak in front of 45 people for 25 minutes. Like, of course, they're going to be willing to wake up in the morning. You know, I have an audio only podcast. You don't have to put on beautiful makeup like Alison has on here today. Like you can just like have,
You
That's a
do
good
it
dad.
later
That's what I'm
on.
saying. That's what I'm saying. You don't even have to do that on my show, though. No hair, no makeup necessary. Just wake up, cup of coffee, stay in your bathrobe. Let's talk for 25 minutes. Like, let's keep it easy. And so I was able to get over the hump by doing it that way. And it still works to this day. And the kind of people that I found really bring the most value to Entrepreneurs on Fire is kind of a theme of what this book is, we'll be talking about in a second. It's one simple sentence: become the best solution to a real problem. Those entrepreneurs who have become the best solution to a real problem, they win at a very high level. They really do. And they become experts in that area. And then it's like a snowball effect. They get the first mover advantage. Everybody's like piling in behind them saying like, this is awesome. You're awesome. Like elevating them because they're the best solution to a real problem. Like this is one thing that will always be true. People want the best solution to their problem. They don't want the second best solution, Alison. They don't want the 14th best solution. They want the best. So find a little tiny eensy weensy niche that you can become the best solution to a real problem in that specific niche, then you can win. And so all of my guests that made the best guess fit that description.
I love it. I love it. Okay, then let's go back one more step from that. So they found the best solution to this real problem. Do you think they were blessed with this superhero power? Do you think they were like the day they were born, they're like, I'm going to go and I'm going to be this solution to this huge problem out there? Or do you think, tell me, we've had a conversation about this. I already know the answer, but I want you to describe how they've gotten to be the best of the best.
Listen, they've put in the reps. And this is the thing that anybody you admire in this world, an athlete, a businessman, a businesswoman, like anybody that you look at and you're like, they're good at that thing, a musician, an artist, fill in the blank, whatever it is, an electrician, a carpenter, they've gotten amazing by doing one thing. They have put in the flipping reps. Was I going to get good at podcasting, doing 4 podcasts a month? Of course not. I was not going to. And since podcasting
wait. I've gotten a lot better. I only do 4 a month, but you know what? I've gotten a lot better than my first one. So
let me be honest. This is like what you do to like, add value to your business, like the main thing that you do. This was all that I was doing. I was just a podcast. That's all I was. So was I just going to sit around and do 1 podcast a week? No, this was everything that I did. This was my one thing. I want to become the best daily podcaster interviewing entrepreneurs. That's what I wanted. And so I put in the reps and I became the best because I just simply outworked everybody. I just put in more and more and more episodes and reps than anybody else. And I'll tell the story real quick. So it's not going to be perfect because we don't have a ton of time, I know, but listen, there's a great story. And I put this in the book because I was so blown away by it, where this teacher of art at this college gets up in front of his students and he says, this is a pottery class. This half of the class, you're only going to be graded on the best single piece of pottery that you create all semester. The other half, you're just going to be graded on the number that you create. You're just going to be graded on the number. So if you do 100, you're going to get an A. If you do 1, you're going to get an F. But for the other people, if you just do 1 perfect one, you'll get an A. So what happened at the end of the semester, I'm fast forwarding through a bunch of things, like it was unbelievable. The people on the one half of the room all had like these crappy pots because they were trying to make like this 1 perfect pot and they never put in the reps. They just like try to do 1 perfect pot. The people on the other side, they could care less. They're just making pot after pot after pot after pot. And then something weird happened. They started getting unbelievably good at making pots. And their pottery was by far 10-fold, 100-fold better than the entire other half of the class, just because they put in the work and put in the reps. That's what sets people apart.
I love that story. So let's dive into this book that we've been hinting around about. You pulled in 12 entrepreneurs?
17
entrepreneurs. Okay. I was just 5 off. And you're telling the story of how they put in the reps, right?
100%.
Okay, so dive into that a little bit more. What is the consistent theme with all of these entrepreneurs that you interviewed in your book?
So here's the consistent theme. Over the past decade, I've interviewed those 3,000 entrepreneurs that I mentioned. I was able to boil down the 17 core foundational principles that every single entrepreneur that's successful has in common. It's across the board. Alison has these principles. Every single successful entrepreneur that I've interviewed has these principles. They are foundational core principles that we successful entrepreneurs have. And people that are struggling to find success, you frankly don't have it, or you're missing a number of these key foundational principles, period. I look down, I'm like, okay, I'm a military guy. I want to put this in a chronological order and make this a step-by-step roadmap for my audience, Fire Nation, because this is what they need. But of course, anybody that wants to be a successful entrepreneur, online, fill in the blank, this is the roadmap to your financial freedom and fulfillment. So your points and your question specifically, I said, okay, I'm going to break each chapter into 3 sections. So section 1 of chapter 1, for instance, is, okay, what is that actual step? So step 1, chapter 1 is identify your big idea. So I teach you how to identify your big idea, the exercises that go behind it. Like I give you the whole process. So probably for most people, identifying their big idea for the first time in their life. Because like little side note, most people in this world will die without ever knowing what their big idea was. And that's a tragedy and that's sad, because what this world needs more of is people getting up every morning, living their big idea, living in their zone of fire, and creating that's what they're meant to be creating. Whatever that thing is in the world, it's special and it's unique to you. And it's there. Let's uncover it in step 1. Section 2 of chapter 1, I tell you specifically how I implemented that big idea story into my life, how I identified my big idea, how I made it work, and all these different things. And then section 3, I sat down and I said, of all the 3,000 plus people that I've interviewed over the past decade, who best exemplifies this step? And I brought in those 17 entrepreneurs for each one of those steps to do exactly what I did in section 2, which is, what do you think about identifying your big idea? How did you do it? What's your recommendation for my readers here, this on how to do it? And then how did you do it in your life? And so for this, the example of chapter 1, I said, well, it's a no-brainer for me. Hal Elrod, with his idea of the miracle morning, was such a big idea. I have to bring him in to talk about it. And he did. And he crushed it. You know, we bring in our mutual friend, Russell Brunson, to talk about funnels. I brought in Amy Porterfield to talk about building a team. I brought in Ramit Sethi to talk about actually keeping the money you make, which, by the way, Alison and I do better than anybody else because we live in Puerto Rico and pay 4% tax. I talk literally to the top entrepreneurs, Stu McLaren, Jeff Walker, Pat Flynn. Like, I brought them all in to contribute to this book. Listen, these people, they all owe me favors because I've been bringing them on my show, sharing their voice, their message, the mission with the world for a decade now. And I said, hey, time to repay the favor. I'm calling the favors. I'm calling on my cards. Let's make this happen. And man, we did it in a big way.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Okay. So you're not only telling their story, you're actually saying, here are the steps to get over the thing or develop one of the foundations to help you to be successful.
Exactly.
So it's not just like a chicken soup for the soul. It's got the stories, but it's also got the steps, right?
You know, I love Mark Victor Hansen. He's a great guy. We only need so many inspirational, motivational stories in this world. Everybody's got a sad story. Everybody's got a sob story. Everybody's got an inspirational, motivational story. Those are great. There's plenty of them out there.
They're amazing. Yes.
This book is not that.
Business owners, we need tactical stuff. Like,
this book is tactical. This is strategies. This is step-by-step guidance that's going to get you to financial freedom and fulfillment. You want inspiration, you should get it, by the way. And by the way, a little quick side note, there is a special bonus chapter I almost never talk about, but since you brought it up kind of in a roundabout way, I'll talk about it real quick.
So is there a bonus chapter in here, John?
Chapter 18, it's called The Well of Knowledge. And I titled it that way because this chapter is not meant to be read last. It's not meant to be read beginning to end. It's literally meant to be looked at like a well, because you have a bad day from time to time, Alison. I have a bad day from time to time. It happens to human beings. We have bad days. Sometimes you do need that inspiration and motivation. Take your ladle, go over to chapter 18, dip it in the well of knowledge, and take out what you need from there. Because that is 10 years of the most inspirational and motivational passages that I have consumed personally. And I've put them in this chapter. Just go there. 1 passage, 2 passages, get the inspiration and motivation you need. Get back to work, because you need to get back to work. But you do need that little ladly dose of inspiration from time to time.
Okay, we hold your book back up. I pre-bought one of these books. I'm waiting for them. I think I don't know how many I bought. Will you tell everybody the name of the book and why you decided to name it this? Because I think this, John, I know Entrepreneurs on Fire. That's a brilliant name, but I think this wins.
Really? You think this wins?
I love it so
Man.
much. You
Listen, I've
nailed
only had a couple great ideas in my life. Entrepreneurs on Fire was one.
it.
Podcasters Paradise was another. The Common Path to Uncommon Success may be the fourth, because I got to sneak in my third real quick. The Freedom Journal. This was a brilliant idea as well.
Oh, yeah.
So listen, the Common Path to Uncommon Success. I didn't call this the secret path to uncommon success or the complicated or hidden path. This is the common path, because guess what? These 17 principles, these 17 core foundational principles that Alison has, that I have, that 3,000 plus other entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, that we all possess, these are common principles. This is not rocket science. And that's why I wanted to name this book what it is, because this is a very common path. Now, let's be honest, Alison, I know you can appreciate this is probably more than most people. It's a common path, but it's hard work. It is hard work. And this is where I want to kind of go to next. So listen, this is the common path to uncommon success. The tagline right here is, a revolutionary 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. The roadmap, it's not a 3 steps. It's not 5 steps. It's a 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. It's hard work. It was hard work building this business right here, Entrepreneurs on Fire. Alison, the empire she's built was hard work. Amen. But one thing that I want to also share with your audience, Alison, is it's hard being broke. It's hard living paycheck to paycheck. It's hard waking up every morning doing something you have to do, not something you want to do. It's hard, being stuck in northern Minnesota in another winter, opposed to be able to come down to Puerto Rico and live down in the 82 degrees and sunny every single day. Like, that's hard to do things that you're not inspired by, that you weren't meant to do, that you just feel, again, just unmotivated about. So what my call to action here is, like, yes, building this business was hard. Yes, what Alison has done to get to where she is hard. But being broken, not doing what you really know you should be doing is hard too. So why don't you just do the following? Why don't you choose your hard? Back in 2012, I chose my hard, and that was hard work to build this business. But the other choice was hard too. Remaining broke, remaining unhappy, depressed, unfulfilled. That would have been a hard life as well. Yeah. So choose your hard.
Totally. Mic drop on that one. Totally. Okay, so I have to ask you, where did 17 come from? Did you just sit down? Like, where did that number come from?
I wish it could have been 16 or 18, because those even numbers, everybody seems to like a little bit better. But this is the 17 core foundational steps. There's not another one that I could have added or one I could have taken away. It's just what it ended up being. Like, I had no intention sitting down for this to be a certain length. It could have ended up being 46 or like whatever it was. But what I did was I sat down and I just downloaded those thousands of hours of conversations I've had over the past decade that I've been learning from, that's been, coming into this brain. And I've been a mentee for all of those, mentors that I've been able to ask questions to and learn from. And I just wrote it out, like journaling, meditating, just writing, and then looking down and seeing like all of these commonalities that we all share. But when I really got down to it and I boiled off the fat and I combined the similar ones, there were just 17 core foundational principles that turned into this 17-step roadmap. So there was no rocket science behind it. It's just what it had to be. And it's kind of crazy. Like, I didn't even know this. I got to go find some more details about it. But people are like the Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, like, has some kind of 17-step formula. And I was like, I literally had no idea. But like, now that I'm thinking about it, like, this is the modern day Think and Grow Rich, because this is me going around to 3,000 successful entrepreneurs. He went around to like 300, which was unbelievable, because he had to actually get in a train or on a horse to do it. I just got to like click the Zoom button and boom, Alison's in my living room. Like, hello, like, life is pretty tough. But yeah, 17, it's what it is.
Okay. So you interview all these 17 people, right? True. And then you're pulling out their core foundations, which you feel like they highlight. Can you give us a couple more? I know you said the first two, but can you just like give us a couple more teasers?
I'm going to give you my favorite one by like a long shot. So this book is 71,000 words, 273 pages. The average chapter is about 3 to 5,000 words, like give or take. Which, by the way, I do want to make a point now. Like this is my quarantine project. Like I sat down for 2 hours a day for 8 months, and I wrote 480 hours. It took me to write this book, 400, and I wrote every single word. Thank you.
That is hard work. That is hard.
That is hard work. It took me 480 hours, and I wrote every single word in that book. And it was it was excruciating at times. I'm just gonna be honest. Like it just was a painful process. But I got to chapter 7, step 7, and I wrote. And then the next day I was writing. And then the next week I'm still writing. And I'm like, what's happening here? I'm still in the same chapter. This is crazy. 13,500 words comprise chapter 7, step 7. And those 13,500 words are creating a content production plan. I stepped back from that, Alison. I looked at it and I was like, okay, I knew there was a lot of reasons why my business has been so successful for so long. I mean, 91 consecutive months of over 100K net profits. Like we're doing something right, obviously. Having a team of just 3 people, virtual assistants in the Philippines, again, we're doing something right to be able to have this podcast with 3,000 episodes, and we're here and we're there and we're creating courses and products and services and journals and all these things. How are we doing that? Our content production plan is fantastic. I mean, it is fantastic. And it wasn't always this way. Our content production plan used to really stink. I mean, it really did. And frankly,
I hope so. I hope everybody stinks when they first start.
Most people watching this right now, there still stinks. It really does. And I'm just being honest with you. Like, if I offend you, I'm sorry, but you need to hear this. Like, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be somebody that's going to get you to financial freedom and fulfillment. Like, you'd rather be financially free and fulfilled than my friend, believe me. So let me be honest with you. Likely, your content production plan stinks. Literally, it really does. And that can change because that is so important. It's everything that we do in this world can hinge around the content that we produce. And it's really another way to put that is the solutions that you're providing to the problem in this world that you're going to become the best solution to. And so this is what I tell people. I'm like, you're going to read this chapter 7, your head's going to pop off because it's so much information, and you're going to have to run over to the corner, like scoot Goose out of the way because he's going to try to be picking your head up, and you're going to pick your head back up, pop it on your head, on your shoulders. And you're going to say like, okay, wow, like that's a content production plan right there. And guess what? For the first time in your life now, you can sit down and you can actually start to create and craft your perfect content production plan. And it's so freeing when you do that. It is so freeing. And this 13,500 word step will get you there. And it's going to take work. I mean, I did not get there overnight to a fantastic content production plan. You won't either, but at least you now have the step-by-step process to get there.
Okay. So who's the entrepreneur that you interviewed to follow up that point?
Kate Lynn Erickson.
You better. Do you want
Nobody else for that?
Who that is?
She is the engine behind all the good things in Entrepreneurs on Fire. I'm just a pretty face and the amazing voice. That's all I am. She is everything else. I literally do nothing but like talk. That's like basically all I do. And she just looks at me sometimes. She's like, will you shut up?
I love Kate. We go on hikes every once in a while, and her brain is so organized. So when you were starting to talk about that chapter, I'm like, wait, this is Kate. Do you have Kate in here?
Kate. She's all right.
She's a perfect one to interview on this one.
Yeah, totally. You should bring her on the show.
I know. I've asked her. We're trying to schedule it in.
Nice. Tune in, guys.
We may talk a little bit about wedding and dog stuff too. So
I won't be tuning in then. Not just kidding.
Okay, so where can everybody find you? Where can everybody find your book? The 17 step roadmap. Where? Well,
Entrepreneurs on Fire is the podcast. Would love if you checked it out. There's some great entrepreneurs that I get to interview on that for sure. My website's headquarters is eofire.com. We have a ton of free stuff for entrepreneurs there. But my main call to action is this. Like, listen, if you want financial freedom in your life, if you want your version of uncommon success, pre-order this book. And I use the word pre-order very intentionally because I have 5 insane bonuses for people who pre-order this book. All of these bonuses, by the way,
when's it coming out?
March 23rd.
March 23rd. Okay. And this actually might be published after.
Okay. So Alison's a terrible host because she's taking away the gift of all of these bonuses that you otherwise would have been able to get. I mean, Alison, this is crazy. Gosh, that's a burn. I'm shipping all of these journals to the door of every single person that pre-orders. I'm shipping all of my journals to the door. If you live in the US, if you're outside the US, you're getting beautiful digital packs of all 3 of these journals. But for people in the US, I'm literally on my own dime. I'm shipping every one of those journals to your door. That's just one of the 5 bonuses. There's 4 other insane bonuses that Alison has, hidden from you because of when she's released this episode. But if you want to learn more about...
I batch my content, John. I batch my content.
You learned well. You have really learned well. So move somebody aside, scooch in this episode, give your listeners the chance to get all these amazing bonuses, plus pre-order this book, uncommonsuccessbook.com. If you're hearing this after March 23rd, that's okay too. Just go to any of your favorite bookstore directories, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Book Depository, fill in the blank. Like it's all there. It's everywhere. You can go to uncommonsuccessbook.com because we're going to have some really cool things even after March 23rd. The bonuses will be gone, but some other cool things will be happening there. And all of, again, the Amazons of the world. And you can check it all out. uncommonsuccessbook.com.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last thing because I know we only have a couple minutes. So someone is just hearing about Entrepreneurs on Fire for the very first time. Give them your top 3 episodes that they should listen to.
Listen to my most recent episode with Tony Robbins. That was a doozy. He was a fire hose for 53 minutes.
You interviewed Tony Robbins?
I've interviewed him 3 times now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm actually going to his house in 3 weeks for a 4-day, 10-person mastermind. So that'll be pretty baller. Myself, 9 other people, and Tony Robbins in one room. Yeah, it'll be pretty baller. At his place in Palm Beach, which would be pretty cool. So that was a fire hose. And by the way, if you just want to go to eofire.com, I have a little search bar there and you can just type in the names to find these people. I would go back and listen to my episode with Sally Hogshead. I think she is such an amazing speaker that I learn so much from her every time I get to interview her, and she's just an awesome person. And who was the third B? There's just so many amazing people. Type in Aaron Walker and actually go back and listen to the first ever episode I did with him, the oldest episode. Excuse me, the oldest episode. And that episode was really a rocker. It was pretty awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot on that one. I know you have to dig through 3,000 and you're like, oh my goodness, what did I do yesterday?
Yes. Who did I interview most recently?
Awesome. Okay. Everybody go check it out. And then don't forget, I'm going to have John's top 10 takeaways at the end. So listen to that. And John, thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate you.
So much fun.
All right, let's dive into the top 10 takeaways from John Lee Dumas. We're going to start at 1 and then go down to number 1, with number 10 being you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So how do you do that? That leads us to number 9. Read books. Read books of people that you want to be like, that you want to achieve to be. Number 8. Okay, once you've read books, start listening to their podcasts. Maybe you can even create a podcast and have them on and be your guests. Number 7, take it deeper. Join their mastermind. Get to know them on a personal basis. Number 6, when you go out into the market, find a void that you can fill. Number 5, put in lots of reps versus trying to find your one perfect thing. You don't have to be perfect. And you guys know I talk about that all the time. Read some of my emails or my posts on social media. I'll tell you what, you're going to find lots of spelling errors. And that's okay because I'm not an English major. I dive into business and I've allowed myself to be okay with grammar mistakes. Yeah, maybe one day I'll get to it. Number 4, most people die without knowing what their zone of genius is. So I think you should find out what it is. All right, we're going into number 3. The path to success is common with lots of reps and work. Number 2, it's hard to be broke and it's hard to be successful, which leads me to the number one thing. Which hard are you going to choose? All right, I hope you loved that podcast episode with John Lee Dumas. I do want to get his fiance on. She is phenomenal. I can't wait for you guys to meet Kate one day. She truly, truly is a blessing. And we have some good conversations, so I'll bring her in and share her as well. All right, have a beautiful day. Go out there and make money. Put it in your pocket where it belongs. Why? Because I know you're going to do good things with it. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.